Hello and welcome to an Arcane Cards draft here. My name is Damon and today we're doing M19, a Magic Core Set 2019. And we happen to open a Planeswalker, so I don't know, I know the Planeswalkers in this set aren't as powerful as in other sets, but let's have a look at Vivian Reed. So 5/5 loyalty, look at the top 4 cards of your library, you may reveal a creature or land put into your hand. Okay, well that's pretty much bound to hit. -3, destroy target artifact, enchantment, or creature with flying. Useful, not game breaking, and emblem you creatures you control. Okay, seems like a solid enough Planeswalker. I mean, I'm definitely going to take her here, but let's have a little bit of a discussion about what else is in the pack. There's Heroic Reinforcements, which is a pretty good synergy with the red-white, which has a go-wide style strategy. It both anthem effects and tokens, and of course this card does both. There's a Pegasus Courser, which is a very solid card. Starcrown the Stag as well. So those are the ones that are standing out to me, but we're going to take our Planeswalker and possibly our Scape Shift. I don't know if this is worth any tickets online. Excuse me while I just check out. Cost $2.29. Well, yeah, I think I'm actually going to take Scape Shift here. So this is a pure value draft because these things aren't cheap to make. Outside of Scape Shift, I'm going to have a look at what's in the pack. So, Suspicious Bookcase has really impressed me. I've liked this card a lot. It blocks early and then late game becomes a must deal with because it's a win condition. Any other creature, essentially, you can just start poking through damage. Gift of Paradise is nice if you want to start splashing, and there's some powerful cards that you might want to splash for, so I do think Gift is a solid pickup, and the 3 life really helps stabilize. Aviation Pioneer is solid. Gallant Cavalry and Gearsmith Guardian have both been pretty impressive. The Gallant Cavalry again in that red-white go-wide deck, and the Gearsmith Guardian in any blue deck. 5 mana for a 5/5 in blue is pretty unheard of. So I would probably take the Suspicious Bookcase here over the Scape Shift if I wasn't rare drafting. So yeah, well, I'd probably take the Bookcase there. Here's an interesting choice. So Meteor Golem, 7 mana 3/3 that destroys target non-land permanent and opponent controls. Strong effect, very good in green, because you can ramp it out. And speaking of ramp, there's a Druid of the Cow. I think my choice is clearly between the Druid and the Meteor Golem. There's no other really amazing cards to pull me out of green. I do really like the Druid. Being able to ramp out things early is powerful. It's a great defensive body. The Meteor Golem is a removal spell tacked onto a 3/3. Most of the time you will get to 7 mana, so I quite like that. So this is a hard pick, I think, between the Druid and the Golem. I could definitely see either being correct. I'm going to take the Druid, and that's mainly because I prioritize these early spells and being able to do things, but the Meteor Golem could definitely be the correct pick here. Druid also kind of cuts off green a little bit, which is a slight reason for me wanting to take it. Since I passed Druid 3rd pick, it's a little bit of a signal for people to start going green. Might not come up, but it's definitely something to consider. So in this pack there's a Diamond Mare, which goes well into a black-white kind of life gain deck. There's a Rupture Spire, which I guess could be decent fixing. I haven't actually played with it yet. You know, it's not great the turn it comes down, but if you put it on turn 2 and then you can cast your 3 drops quite easily. Or there's an Aviation Pioneer, a Centaur Courser, which is a generic 3/3 for 3, Highland game. I think at this point my options are pretty open. There's also an Oaken form, but I prefer to get some more combos or synergies with auras before I pick up that. I think here it's between Aviation Pioneer, the Centaur Courser, Highland game, and a Rupture Spire. I'm actually going to stay pretty open, I think, and take this Rupture Spire over the Pioneer. I think the Pioneer is a far better card. I'm going to value staying open and see what my second colour might want to be by taking this Rupture Spire. Plus, if we really go deep, we can Scape Shift into it. So this next pack has Novice Knight, Agrippa Guide's the only green card, which is filler, fine, but I'm not going to pick it 4th. Novice Knight, which I think is powerful, but not necessarily in green, although it does count enchantment, so you can actually aura the Novice Knight up and start attacking. Boggart Brute, I think, is probably the best quote-unquote card in the pack. It's a 3/2 with Menace, which is very solid. So this is an interesting choice between the Novice Knight and the Boggart Brute. I do think red-green ramp is a good place to be. I haven't been impressed with I haven't really seen green-white at all. So I might steer away from that, and in that, for instance, I'm going to take the Boggart Brute over the Novice Knight. Okay, so here there is Poison Tip Archer, which is very solid. Pretty much always going to kill a creature, and the fact that it's got reach is very relevant, and it's got a bonus as well with the draining opponents for 1 every time something dies. Outside of that, there's an Ogre, which is fine if you have the payoffs for having creatures with power 4, but I wouldn't. There's a few cards in this set which pay you off for having power 4 or greater, and the Ogre's a nice, easy way to do that, but I wouldn't pick it up first. I'd want the payoffs first before taking the 4-powered creatures, because otherwise it's pretty mediocre. Also here, Skeleton Archer. I'm going to take the best card in the Poison Tip Archer, especially since I want to be green, and it kind of fits in with what we're doing anyway. Ooh, Spark-Tongue Dragon. I like this. So if Spark-Tongue Dragon wasn't in the pack, I would definitely be taking Explosive Apparatus. This thing does hit a lot of relevant creatures. It's an artifact which can matter, pretty much fits into any deck. I mean, if you think of it as a colorless 4 mana or 1 mana and then 3 mana shock, like, that's pretty good. It deals with, Boggart Brute pretty well, it can finish off players, it's got nice applications. With that said, if we're playing green-red and we're ramping, I definitely want a card like Spark-Tongue Dragon in my deck. I would forego the Poison Tip Archer to run Spark-Tongue Dragons, so I'm going to take the Dragon. Also gets found by Vivian Reed, which is a nice little combo. Alright, this is a late Suspicious Bookcase, I think. I think this card is quite powerful, especially if you're doing any kind of ramp strategy. As I said, it blocks well early, it's colorless, you can put it in any deck, and it becomes a real threat later in the game. So I'm going to organize these by creatures and then non-creature spells, and I'm going to keep all of the colors in currently. Keeping in mind we also have Erupt Spire to splash. Outside of the Suspicious Bookcase, I'd be considering, say, a Goblin Instigator. Probably wouldn't be considering Snapping Drake at this time since I haven't picked any blue cards. So we're now 1 pack away from our original pack. And there's nothing much for us here. Disperse, I think, is the strongest card in the pack, but it might come to the point where we don't want to keep taking the strongest card because we might just, for instance, be end up in black and want a Hired Blade. With that said, I don't really want any of these other cards, and Disperse is the strongest card, so I'm going to take Disperse. Well, I guess Fountain might end up having some kind of synergy for our deck. I don't think it's good, and I wouldn't main deck it, but, it at least does cycle itself. So here, this is our original pack. There's a Goblin Motivator, which is not as good in this kind of deck, unless you have the Goblin synergies or payoffs. Oakenform, which could prove to be quite decent. Crash Through, which is also fine as a cycler. I think I'll take the Oakenform. I haven't ever built the Auras deck. I don't think it's great, but there's not much removal in these sets, and sometimes, you can just slap this on a random creature and go to town with it. So here there's an Ogre and a Thornhide Wolves. I definitely lean towards a Thornhide Wolves because it's green. This is a very late Gearsmith. I think this is a good card. It's primarily a blue card, but you can play it in any deck. It's still fine. It's like only one toughness, 1 power less than the Wolves that is picked up here. Highland Game versus the second Oakenform. I'm going to take Oakenform, which shows you how much I value Highland Game, e.g. not much. Already both of my 2-drops are defensive, and I don't really want to pick up aggressive ones. Crash Through is fine as a cycling card. Alright, we really did it on Oakenforms. So maybe if we pick up some of those Druids, an uncommon Druid that when they get targeted by Auras you get a 3-3, which might make me want to play these Oakenforms. Otherwise, who knows? Well, we're opening pretty nicely today since we've got another giant rare. Lathisless Dragon Queen is of course a bomb. You should probably take her, especially if you happen to be in her colour. We already have 1 dragon to combo with her, but you really don't need dragons when you're playing this card. A 6 mana 6/6 flyer is already a fantastic rate. She happens to have fire breathing, and if you have any more dragons, if she survives and you play any more dragons, you essentially win the game. So very happy to open Lathisless here. I would also be happy to first pick a Lightning Strike. Good solid burn spell, can go to players or to creatures. Good rate, better than Shock, better than Electrify, so it's probably the best burn spell outside of Banefire in the set. So those are 2 great cards. Out of this pack we can probably expect to wheel, say, a Timber Gorge, or maybe a Giant Spider, both of which are fine and I would play, but happy to take the Dragon here. Alright, looks like we're getting hooked up in dragons, so pretty happy about this. Spit Flame is actually, now that I mention it, actually better probably than Lightning Strike, because it has the recursion effect. It's an instant, deals 4 damage to a creature, which is fantastic, and you can get it back from the graveyard. So we're going to start really prioritizing dragons, of course, from this stage, and basically, yeah, it seems like we're getting hooked up in dragons, in green and red. Sometimes the packs open, and you get pretty lucky, so that's very nice for us. Giant Green Seeker has been fine, I found. Again, it's a 1-3. It's not quite as good as the Druid of the Cowl, but it will on average draw you a few cards. Aven Windmage is a very nice little beater. Plague Mare, of course, very solid, but Spit Flame is easily the choice for us. Crash Through would go there. So this next pack doesn't really have... I mean, it has a rare, a green rare, that has currently one combo with our Druid, and that is about it. But there is nothing else really exciting in this pack. If we were splashing black, I could see playing the Sky March Bloodletter. It's a solid creature. I don't think the Clan Caller is worth anything. Not yet. So that's not great. We could take a Cinder Barons, which would allow us to splash this Poison Tip Archer. Yeah, I don't really see any combos with the Clan Caller. So it's either Bloodletter or Cinder Barons. We have a better chance of wheeling the Barons, so I'll take the Bloodletter, just on the off chance we end up going black. Well, okay, here's nice. So cheap interactive removal in Shock is a pretty easy pick. Outside of that, there's a Fiery Finish, which deals with bigger creatures, but a much worse rate. And we've already got the Spit Flame to deal with slightly larger creatures, so pretty happy to take a Shock here. I like that red seems open, and you know, we're passing a Fiery Finish to someone, but that's fine. Shock, not much more to say here. Cheap and efficient removal is what you want. Well, this is interesting. So Electrify, again, solid removal spell, and Rabid Bite, very nice when you've got some beef on your side of the battlefield. The Rabid Bite is cheaper on mana. Is a very good combo with Poison Tip Archer, of course, because it has Death Touch. So the question is, do I take Rabid Bite or Electrify here? I have Spit Flame, which deals 4 damage as well, which could be a consideration. If I want to kill anything bigger than 4, maybe in that case the Rabid Bite is correct. However, if I take Electrify, again, it's cutting off red, sending a signal that red is not open. I think red is open enough that I can afford to take Rabid Bite here, which is not a pick I would normally make, but I already have a couple of those burn effects, and so I'm going to take a Rabid Bite over that Electrify. I think that's a pretty close pick. Act of Treason, Highland Game, and nothing much to splash here, so not very exciting. We don't have any set ways to sacrifice the creatures we get with Act of Treason, so it would purely be a sideboard card. The Gallant Cavalry is a strong card. I think that's probably the strongest card in the pack. Dwindle and Omen Speaker are also nice. We don't really have a way to play any of those though, so I'm going to take Highland Game here and pass it on. So there's a Tormenting Voice and a Giant Spider in this pack. I don't mind having a Tormenting Voice, but I'm not going to go out of my way to pick them up. And having some defense against flyers is nice. So I'll take a Giant Spider. Happy player Tormenting Voice. I consider Wall of Vines to be essentially unplayable unless your opponent's playing multiple 2/2s or 2/1 flyers, and you have no other way to deal with them. Take a Giant Spider. Enigma Drake. The blue-red spells pay off deck, but we don't really have that going on. We can take a 2/2 with Vigilance, which doesn't do much. A Highland Lake, which could let us splash into blue if we pick up anything that powerful, but I don't really think it's too worth deviating from our green-red plan, possibly with a black splash. I really don't consider these 2/2s for 2 to be really playable, so I'm going to take Tormenting Voice, which I believe is better than all of those other cards. There's a late Gallant Cavalry, but we're not in white. Goblin Motivator is not great in this deck currently, but it is on colour, and outside of that I'd be taking a Hired Blade on the splash, or a duress on the splash, none of which seem great. So I'm going to cut red and take this card that I hope not to play. Again, I'm going to take a sideboard card for the sake of cutting red. We definitely know we're in red. I've got a 2-mana 2/2 or a 3-mana 2/2, but at least the 3-mana 2/2 can ramp me. There's a chance I play this Catalyst Elemental. Alright, Hostile Minotaur came around. This is a nice card. 4-mana 3/3, and then the haste is a kind of little bonus. Mind Rot versus Falcon. I'll take Mind Rot since we might be splashing black. Trumpet Blast, and a Mountain. So, what's the next thing we can open from our big pack? I guess we could get a Nickel Bowler, so we probably wouldn't be able to cast that one, unfortunately. We're looking for more dragons, of course, more ramp, more stuff. Any combos with these Oaken forms as well, which aren't looking amazing in our deck right now. We don't have like cheap flyers to put them on. But our deck is definitely very solid. We've now got the Dragon Queen, we've got Vivian Reed, so we can't complain about our power level. I did not wheel that red-black land either. Alright, here's another green rare. So we seem to be opening rares on colour. So this is a 2-mana 2/3 that is very hard to interact with and can become a 6/7 later in the game. Yeah, I'm down for that. I think that passes the test to see if it's better than Shock. I think it is. This is a 2-drop that you're happy playing early and you're happy playing late. And yeah, it's not amazing. And maybe if there was like a strong dragon or something, I'd consider taking the dragon over the Thorn Lieutenant. But I think at this stage, we don't need the Shock as badly. We have a few ways to remove stuff, and the Thorn Lieutenant looks like it fills our early game out quite nicely. From this pack, we might wheel a Havoc Devils, although unlikely. Explosive Apparatus might come back, depends how people value that. Titanic Growth, maybe a Sky Scanner. What's this? This is a 6-mana, double black, 4-mana, 6/6 Flying Trample. You have to sacrifice something. Or there's a Volley Veteran, or there's a Spark Tongue Dragon and a Fiery Finish. I think this is a clear pick because of the Lathisless and the Split Flame. We take the Dragon here. If we didn't have those combos, then we could consider the Veteran or the Fiery Finish, but the Dragon just makes so much sense with our picks. Would be nice to pick up some more mana ramp. Remember I picked this Druid of the Cow, was it second or third pick maybe? I think it was third pick, over that very powerful Meteor Golem as well. So we haven't seen any more of the Druids. They go fast, so if you want them you have to pick them up early. Inferno Hellion is not a dragon, and we don't have any combos with it currently, so I wouldn't consider taking that. Psychic Symbiont is a strong card that I would love to be able to play with. 6-mana 3/3 flying that then also gets you, 2 cards worth of value. Seems very strong. This pack is kind of a bit of a miss for us. I wouldn't really play the Inferno Hellion unless I had some kind of combos, e.g. ways to return it back to my hand, ways to sacrifice it to do effects afterwards. So I think here I'm probably going to take something like a Foul Orchard in case I want to splash that black. And I don't think I'm missing out on much by passing all of these cards. We can't really splash the Psychic Symbiont. I don't want a 2-mana 2/2. Marauder's Axe doesn't seem good in our deck, and I don't like the Inferno Hellion for points made before. Vinemare, however, I'm very high on. This is a great card to put Oaken Form on, and in fact, just increase the chances of us playing those Oaken Forms dramatically. 4-mana 5/3 with Hexproof is already a beater. The fact that it can't be blocked by black creatures is kind of bonus on top, because as people who've been playing Limited Magic know, Hexproof is very tough to interact with, and the fact that this has so much power, and with any auras that buff its toughness, becomes really, really hard to deal with. So I have a Vinemare very high up on my pick order, and I think it will overperform. Well, it will probably perform how I expect it to perform, but, if you weren't expecting this card, it would probably overperform. There's a nice little combo as well with there's like a green rare that gives a creature, I think, +7/+7 in trample, Colossal Majesty or something like that, which is of course, very good combo with Vinemare, giving it trample and making it into a giant creature. 13 power. Speaking of which, we get a second Vinemare. In the same pack, there's a Meteor Golem, and I'm actually going to take Vinemare over it. Reason being that I already have 3 Oaken Forms, I already have high cost cards that kind of destroy or deal with troublesome creatures, and I think Vinemare is the shiz. So that reason I'm going to take a Vinemare here and pass the Meteor Golem. Recollect would be interesting in our deck. We do have a lot of powerful cards, so I could see if we will that playing it. Vinemare goes in. Alright, no real cards for us here unless we want a sideboard Smelt. I prefer a sideboard Naturalize, of course, so that's not great. I could also pick up a Tormenting Voice, which is probably the most playable card in this pack. I think I already have 1 Tormenting Voice, so we'll put 1 in the sideboard. Tormenting Voice is of course better if you can combo it with like Spitflame, discard it, get it back, or if you've got Oaken Forms but no creatures in your hand, that can be quite nice. It's also useful later in the game when you just want to, you're flooding out, so you can keep a land in hand in case you draw your Tormenting Voice and then cash that in for 2 cards. At the moment I don't need to splash black. Even though I have 2 ways to splash, I don't think I need these cards, so I'm just going to take them out for the moment. Already have a giant spider to block reach. I'm not super happy to play Catalyst Elemental, but I probably would. I've got some powerful stuff. Spark-Tongue Dragon can always use a few extra mana lying around. Okay, I'll take Volley Veteran here, even though it's crowding up on my 4-drops. My only real other choice is between like a Gearsmith Guardian and maybe a Macabre Waltz. Volley Veteran can ping off a 1 toughness creature. I already have a goblin to go with it, so 2 goblins, not the end of the world, and is a 4/2 on its own rate, which is perfectly acceptable. I might not end up playing it because I might have too many 4-drops, but it's pretty much always going to get some point of value. There's a few 1 toughness creatures in the set. We might even end up picking up another goblin in these last few packs. So there's a Fire Elemental, a 3rd Oaken Form, or that Wall of Vines that I was talking about before. I would never run 4 Oaken Form in a deck, so I don't think that's an option. So I think it's really between Fire Elemental and Wall of Vines. Fire Elemental is pretty bad, but it is big. But I've already got big things in Vinemare. So for that reason I'm going to take Wall of Vines, even though I was hating on it before, because I'm not going to play those other cards. So this is our original pack. There's a very nice card in the Havoc Devils, also a Titanic Growth, which I don't think we need. May as well take the good 4-drop. This is better than the Hostile Minotaur. Daggerback Basilisk is probably going to make the deck since it fills out the curve, and I don't want a second Wall of Vines. And now we're just taking cards away from other people. I guess I'll take a Fire Elemental sideboard. I would really have liked some Elvish Rejuvenators, the 3-mana 1/1 that comes in and, finds a land in the top 5 cards. That would have been very nice. Unfortunately, we didn't see any of those. Maybe they just weren't in the packs, or they're being taken quite highly, because they do help you ramp out your mana, and 8 mana is a lot for a Spark-Tongue Dragon, especially considering we only have 1 ramp spell in the Druid of the Cowl. We are definitely a late game deck though. Rupture Spire is not going to make the main deck either. I could see bringing in a Tormenting Voice, or possibly a Goblin Motivator, because we do have quite a few big things, and it combos with the Volley Veteran, so that's a reason to consider that. Probably going to play 18 lands with this, because I definitely want to hit 4. I'm going to take out Hostile Minotaur. That's probably the easiest cut to make. Highland Game I don't love, but it does at least block early, so it might be worth it. We've got these Oaken Forms. Playing 3 might be a bit risky, though they are quite good with the Tormenting Voice. Not bad on the Thorn Lieutenant, or the Basilisk really, although actually having a 5/5 that doesn't really matter. Good on the Bogart. I think I'm definitely going to play some number of them. It depends how many. Thornhide Wolves is another consideration, whether or not I want it. I think it'll probably be good, just having a big butt, being able to block well. I think Crash Through is actually also pretty decent in this deck, considering none of our stuff really has trample. Crash Through with the Vine Mares or with something in Oaken form is pretty nice. Looks like I'm going to have to cut 3 cards from this. I think Volley Veteran's going to be one of them. If I see my opponent playing a lot of 1 toughness creatures, I can bring it in. Let's take out 1 Oaken form. And then we're left deciding between a Giant Spider, maybe like a Catalyst Elemental, or a Daggerback Basilisk. Kind of interchangeable 3-drops. Probably like the Basilisk more, but also I don't mind the Elemental in this deck. I mean, the Highland game is definitely the weakest of these creatures, so I'm going to take it out and bring it in if I'm facing an aggressive deck. 18 lands, 9/9. Combine, sort by converted mana cost. As we can see, we're a little lackluster in the 2-drop spot, but we do have that Highland game that we can bring in if necessary, and the power of our later game should make up for it. So I'm going to take a screenshot of the deck and sideboard, save it up, and wish me luck for round 1. Here we are for round number 1, and we win the dice roll, so we get to decide whether or not we're on the play or the draw. Since our deck has both few cheap interaction spells like Shock and expensive cards, I think it's definitely correct to go on the play with this deck. And our opening hand has lands and spells. It's even got a 2-drop in the Suspicious Bookcase, 3-drop, 4-drop, and a bomb, so we're definitely going to keep this hand. Of course, we even have the option here potentially of turboing Lethlesis out on turn 4 if we cast this Catalyst Elemental. Just playing on curve here, opponent doesn't have any plays. We put down the Elemental. Opponent leads with a Skymarch Bloodletter. Pretty decent little flyer that drains. I have the option here of putting the Lethlesis down, but I also have the option of just casting a Havoc Devils. So I attack with my Catalyst Elemental, and instead of running my first big bomb right out into a removal spell from open mana from the opponent, I decide to just be mana efficient, play Havoc Devils. That way I get to keep my Catalyst Elemental around. We have a 4/3 Trampler, and we save our big dragon in hand, because we can cast it anyway, we have 6 mana. Turns out the opponent has a Skeleton Archer, which is not going to do much on this board, just going to deal 1 damage to us. We take a hit from the flyer, and I decided not to attack at this point because I felt we were going to be so far ahead with the dragon. I didn't really want to trade our Havoc Devils. The opponent has a really nice one here in the Regal Bloodlord. Just pause on that for some of these new cards. So the 2/4 flyer that if there's any life gain happening, you get 1/1s with flying. So that is quite scary, especially in a black-white life gain deck. I got a Thorn Lieutenant here, which is decent, although not at its best, but always going to be threatening. So again, I can cast either of my cards. I decide here that if the opponent has a removal spell, well, so be it. We're just going to have to cast our giant thing out, otherwise we're going to be taking tons of damage in the air. And again, I decide not to attack with the Havoc Devils and trade with the Skeleton Archer. So I really hope the opponent doesn't have a kill spell here for Lethlesis, and it looks like they don't. Rather interesting attack here. I decide that since the opponent passes with all their mana up, it's a bit suspicious to send in with the Dragon Queen. Considering they already have 2 flyers, they might have some combat trick or something that gives -X/-X, or they might even have a Take Vengeance, something that destroys a tapped creature. So at the moment I decide, since Lethlesis didn't die last turn, this is going to give me a headache saying this name, I'll just keep it back and send with my 2 ground creatures. My intention here was to use a Suspicious Bookcase to make my 2/2 unblockable, but I accidentally passed through my my attack step. So the opponent has a fun time figuring out why I sent this 2/2 into a 3/3. Eventually they make the sensible block and don't get punished for it. I play a Thorn Elemental down. Opponent has a Sky Scanner, which is a little flyer that draws them a card, and then they sacrifice it to draw 2 more cards. Oh, sorry, 3 more cards. So nice little advantage from the opponent there. I feel like at this stage they're definitely going to have a removal spell, so I decide that while the going's good, I'm going to get in, attack with everything. If I keep the Thorn Elemental up, I've got the threat of activating it, which is going to make it quite hard to block. The opponent just blocks there. Instead of activating the Thorn Elemental, I go for a mana efficient play, pump Lethlesis twice with her own ability. Or is this Lathless? No, not Lethlesis. Apologies for that. For the whole draft I'm going to be saying Lethlesis. It's just Lathless. Okay. In any case, we cast a Vinemare, which is pretty good against the opponent's black creatures, and apparently even with 6 cards in hand, they don't have anything to say. So that wraps up game 1. We head into our sideboard. So looking at the sideboard, we actually saw a decent number of 2-powered flyers, and so this is, I think, the time to bring in good old Wall of Vines, since it can block those 2-powered flyers quite well, and even though it doesn't block the 3/3 on the ground, it still seems like a decent addition to stop us dying early. What are we going to take out? Well, I think the clear cut is the Basilisk here. Again, most of their creatures have flying. Black and white has small creatures anyway, so the Death Touch isn't really going to do much. So I think that's an easy swap. We are, of course, on the draw here, and opening hand, it's nice that it's got a Tormenting Voice in it. We don't have the double green for the Vinemare, which is very good against the opponent, but we do have it in our hand, as well as Lathless, our big bomb. So yeah, this is great. We've also got a 2-drop to follow up with, so easy keep here. See what we draw. We get Wall of Vines. I decide not to cast Wall of Vines here because we might actually want to discard it with the Tormenting Voice. It might not do anything. And so in that case, I'd rather just, be able to discard and get a useful card. Here I cast the Druid of the Cowl, which will accelerate our mana, and in fact means we get to cast a Vinemare on turn 3. Skeleton Archer comes down, deals 1 damage to us, but we've now got a Vinemare, which is pretty brutal. I use a Tormenting Voice, discard that Wall of Vines as I was talking about, and play down a Thorn Lieutenant. Opponent attacks us with this 3/3. I could double block on the Druid and the Thorn Elemental, but decide it's not really worth it. Then they play an Epicure of Blood, big 4/4 creature. So now with 6 mana we can either cast Lathless or a Spark-Tongue Dragon for no added effect, or we can threaten to use the Thorn Elemental. Decide to send with both. Opponent blocks on the Bookcase and I don't activate, instead just uses 6 mana to put our Dragon Queen down. Opponent has a Shieldmare, gains him some life, loses us some life, and attacks with everything. I'm feeling in a pretty safe situation at the moment because I've got both the Vinemare and the Thorn Lieutenant down. I've got a Spark-Tongue Dragon in hand, but I decided that taking hits of 7 damage was not a great play, since they've also got this Bookcase. They can make their 4/4 unblockable. So my question was, what did I want to block? As I said, it's not good if Lathless dies, but it's not the end of the world because I have all these attackers. In the end, I put her in front of the 3/3 since there's a -3/-3 effect in the format, and I don't think there's any pump spells that give more than +2/+0, so I felt like that was a safe block. Turns out the opponent was actually holding a -4/-4 spell, so it does kill Lathless, but that is a rare one. Attack with the Vine Elemental, and I'm just saving the mana to cast this the Dragon, because next turn I will have 8 mana, and this turn I can block on the Thorn Elemental, use Thorn Elemental's ability to pump it up to a 6/7, and just eat their 4/4. I'm down to 7 life, so I do need to be careful about that. Blood Divination from the opponent, and then a Luminous Bond targeting our Thorn Elemental, which means we get a 1/1. Luckily here we get to be able to cast our Spark-Tongue Dragon down. The choice is whether to kill the Shieldmare or the Archer. I think we kill the Shieldmare and attack with our Vinemare and probably the Druid. Oh, so we have to tap the Druid, so just attack with the Vinemare, keep the 1/1 back to block for any shenanigans. Turns out the opponent doesn't even need to see that from us. That's enough to seal the game, so I definitely feel we were confident there, although it is a good point that you should probably never concede until you've actually lost, because your opponent might misplay, or you might draw a bomb card you didn't know about. In any case, we seal up round number 1 in pretty straight sets, and head on to round number 2. So for round 2, we lost the dice roll, and so are on the draw. Our hand has 3 lands, a Druid, nothing really to accelerate into, we've got to crash through to cycle, and 2 removal spells, so it looks pretty good to me. Hopefully we can find something to use this Druid to accelerate into, of course Vinemare being the perfect one. I cycle that crash through and draw Spark-Tongue Dragon. Elvish Rejuvenator from the opponent just gives him a land. I don't draw a 4-drop, so I can't cast anything here. They have a Bristling Boar. With 5 mana I get to cast down the Thornhide Wolves. Opponent attacks with the Bristling Boar, and because I'm tapped out and I have so many powerful things going on, I'm not going to walk into a combat trick or a minus X effect, so I just let the 4 damage through. Second Rejuvenator. So now, knowing that what is in the removal suite of red and green with potentially black, I decide it's pretty safe to use a Rabid Bite on my my 4/5, which takes out their Bristling Boar. At best, you know, they could have 2... Well, with 3 mana they really can't interact. I mean, they could possibly shrink it with a Nightmare's Thirst or something, but it's very unlikely. So, feel pretty safe taking out their Boar with the Wolves. Leave them with 4 mana left up. I could cast an Oakenform now on, say, the Druid and start attacking, but I figure it's just better to put more bodies on the board and get the Boggart Brute down. Attack with my 4/5, it gets chump blocked. Play our Boggart. Just an easy attack here with both creatures, we'll see what happens. Strangling Soot takes out our Boggart and they chump block again. So, I don't quite know why they're chump blocking. Here we go, the Electrify to take out a Thornhide Wolves. We have an Elvish Rejuvenator. We draw a Giant Spider. I do have the option of casting an Oakenform on the Druid and starting to attack. They have 0 cards in hand, so they wouldn't be able to stop that. And it would give us a 4/6, which is a decent sized body. I decide instead, because that would leave us completely vulnerable, to save the Shock, just in case they happen to cast the... there's an enchantment that gives +7/+7 and trample to a creature. I really don't want to lose to that card, so I decide to keep the Shock open and take out, just in case they have that. I don't think this opens me up to much risk. It's a slower gameplay, but I feel like I'm winning the late game anyway with these creatures. I've got a Spark Tongue Dragon, which I cast down now. Use the 3 damage to destroy the 1/1. Opponent has 1 card in hand, so now I do slap that Oakenform on my least valuable creature, which happens to be the Giant Spider. And because there's no sweepers in red, green, and black, I feel pretty safe playing down the Catalyst Elemental. The opponent, meanwhile, has scooped due to too many lands. So sideboarding for game 2 of round 2, we saw our opponent was red, green and black, and I feel pretty confident to take out Giant Spider because there's not many flyers in those colour combinations, if any. And instead of the Giant Spider, I decided to bring in the Volley Veteran, which they have a few 1 toughness creatures. We saw all those little Elvish Rejuvenators. Not the best to pick off, but also, you know, a 4/2 body blocks pretty well against red-green. Can take out some of their things, so I decided to bring that in as a nice little 2-for-1. Here we are for game 2 of round 2. Our hand is a little on the light mana side, but at least we have a Crash Through, which will allow us to essentially cycle and hopefully draw a land, and also we are on the draw, because the opponent lost in the first game. So here I have no hesitation firing off a Crash Through to draw a card. We draw a Shock, but then we draw the land, so that's nice. We can at least cast this Boggart next turn. 3 mana from the opponent, each one of their Elvish Rejuvenators. Gets them a land. I'm definitely not going to bother shocking that. Going to save the Shock for a worthwhile target. Second Rejuvenator, and they have a Shock of their own to take out a Boggart, which is a fair enough use of a Shock. I would approve that. 4 mana here. I'm just going to cast down this Volley Veteran that we sideboarded in, take out one of their 1/1s, and it presents a pretty big threat as a 4/2. So I'm just going to talk about my choice here. I drew a Havoc Devils for the turn, so I had quite a few choices. I could play Havoc Devils, I could Spit Flame and destroy their Bristling Boar. I could play a Thorn Lieutenant and hold a Shock open. Instead, what I decided to do was put Oakenform on the Volley Veteran and start attacking. My reasoning for that is that, as I said before, red and green basically only have burn spells or fight spells in order to kill things. Pumping the Volley Veteran to 5 toughness means that it's essentially dodges all of that, unless there's a combination of 2 burn spells or a pump spell and a fight spell. So essentially it removes all the risk from removal. It puts a bit of a clock on the opponent as well, a 7/5, and it means that I can hold up a Shock with this 1 red, meaning that if they do go for the double block on both of their creatures, I can shock the Rejuvenator and take out the Boar. So I felt like the upside was definitely high enough to slap that Oakenform down. And turns out they're just going to take the damage. The one thing it does die to is the burn spell Fiery Fall, which is a 6 mana deal 7, but I was kind of okay with that anyway. Rock's Oracle draws the opponent a card, and a Sky Scanner draws them another card. So here, end of turn, I use the Shock mana efficiently and take out that 4/2. Drawing a land, we attack with our 7/5. Now they go for the triple block, which is curious, because I thought they would have, if they were going to do that, they would have done it last turn with the double block. Either way, I get to Spit Flame, take out their biggest creature, and mine survives. Nothing from the opponent. We play a Thorn Elemental in second main of that last turn, attack and pump for exact lethal. So not much of a game there. Obviously removal spells plus big creatures is a good combo, and we got out ahead of the opponent. Well, let's hope that the finals brings us some exciting magic. Before I started round 3, I actually made a few little tweaks to the deck. I decided to take out the Basilisk. It really wasn't doing much. I could side it in if I was facing against that big deck, and put in a Tormenting Voice, because I really liked having something to do on turn 2. There was often times when I'd be on 2 lands but really want a third, and I felt that Tormenting Voice would really help me there. So I took out the Basilisk, added a Tormenting Voice, and also I added one more mountain and took out a forest. Had slightly more red and double red, and even the Spark-Tongue Dragon is actually a triple red cost, and I'd also just cut a green card for a red card. So here we are for the finals, and of course we win the dice roll and decide to go on the play. Opening hand is really leaning pretty heavily on this Tormenting Voice, but with that said, it's pretty good. We've got Spit Flame, we've got a removal spell, and if we ever find our green sources, we've got a great creature to go with it. So hopefully Tormenting Voice will be able to find us what we want here. Another mountain, not exactly what we want, so Tormenting Voice, ditching a mountain, we draw 2 more cards, but there on the next turn we managed to hit our green source. Europa Guide, I decide not to Spit Flame this Europa Guide in case the opponent wants to enchant it or do something, or play a better threat. It also gets blanked by my Thornhide Wolves in a turn, so... Arcane Encyclopedia from the opponent. I've got my big Dragon Queen, which if I draw a land I can cast next turn, so I decide to play the Thornhide Wolves. Opponent draws a card. Here I go for the slightly riskier play. Because I didn't have a forest, if I had a forest I would have cast the Vine Mare, but because I've only got mountains I go for the Dragon Queen. Basically only Essence Scatter from the opponent is bad for me here. They do have 2 blue up, but who knows if they're playing it. Turns out they are, so they counter my dragon, and I decide not to attack with my wolves. The next turn the opponent plays Herald of Faith, good flying creature, so I decide to attack with my 4/5 and try and bait them into double blocking, where I could use the Spit Flame to get some extra value. Opponent does not fall for this trick, however. Picking up the forest also means we can double spell quite nicely. Cast our Vine Mare and Spit Flame will take out their flyer. Good attack of the 3/2 means that we don't block it on the Vine Mare. Decide to slap down the Oakenform on the Mare now, even though they've got a nice chump block of their Elvish Rejuvenator. I did have 8 mana, so I could have cast Spark-Tongue Dragon here, taken out their 1/1 and bashed for 9. You know, in retrospect, that could have been the correct play. I was getting a bit greedy. If we pick up any one more land, we can also get a Spit Flame back, and I thought that would be a better way to do it. Plus, I felt pretty confident we were going to win the late game here with this Vine Mare and the Thornhide. Oakbark Twins from the opponent is going to put a bit of a halter on our plans, as they also follow up with a Rabid Bite, which means their 7/7 deals damage to our Thornhide Wolves, so the Wolves go down. We draw our Havoc Devils, and there's no really good target for the Spark-Tongue Dragon. I'm still waiting, because if I get that one more land I can get a lot of value. So here I cast my Havoc Devils down, have a 4/3, and pass the turn back to the opponent. They cast an Angel of the Dawn, which gives their creatures +1/+1 and Vigilance. They attack with both, and I kind of need to block this Twins here. I decide to double block since it mitigates some of the trample damage, and the blowout is much less if they have some kind of pump spell. So I take the damage from the guide, and they follow up with a Marauder's Axe, which is pretty nice, just because it makes all of their creatures into quite big threats now I'm on 7 life. I did draw the land, which means I get to combo off with Spark-Tongue Dragon. So the dragon will deal 3 to the Angel of the Dawn. We get our Spit Flame back to our hand. I attack for 4 and they block. We trample over for 2 damage. So we're hopefully riding this dragon and the Spit Flame to victory. Aven Windmage from the opponent means it pretty much has to get Spit Flamed, otherwise it'll just block our dragon. So I cast our Druid and the Spit Flame. Opponent has a very nice little combo here. They use Salvager of Secrets to return the Rabid Bite that they cast earlier from their graveyard to their hand. Then they equip the Marauder's Axe to the Salvager of Secrets, making it a 4/2, and then use the Rabid Bite to take out our flying creature. Colossal Majesty is the follow-up spell, and they now have a 4-powered creature, so unfortunately we did not draw a removal spell, we drew a Vine Mare. So they're going to start drawing 2 cards a turn. Scholar of Stars, draw another card. Attacking with the 4-2 gives us an interesting option here. Do we want to block? Then they'll just be able to equip to the Scholar of Stars next turn. I decide our best shot is in drawing something relevant, maybe being able to start double blocking instead of chump blocking, or something really good to go with the Vine Mare. So take this hit down to 3. Things are getting tight here. Knightly Valor, Aura's up the 3-2 into a 5-4, and they also get a Knight. Luckily we do draw a creature, so we're still in it. Opponent draws another card at the beginning of their turn. Knight's Pledge, another +2/+2 effect, means that all of their attackers are lethal. We do survive this turn, and we get to trade off with 2 of their creatures, but we're chump blocking once, so we do need to draw something pretty good here. Dryad Greenseeker with an axe on it is also going to mean that we're going to need a removal spell and a blocker. Basically, the dragon's our only hope. If we do the dragon, we could shoot the Dryad and get back the Spitflame for next turn. As it is, we drew a forest, and that is game 1 to our opponent, who is playing a very sweet tricolour value aura buffing small creatures deck. So let's have a look at our sideboard options. First of all, I don't think we're going to outvalue our opponent. We saw multiple draw effects. You know, the Encyclopedia kept drawing them cards, all of their little things had cantrips, so I'm going to take out Giant Spider. It's not big or fast enough. It doesn't really block their things. They had a Wind Mage, sure, but with an axe it's a 4-2 anyway. And I just replace it with something a bit bigger, like a Volley Veteran. It hits harder, it's got an incidental upside, you know, a bit more value, and I'm going to try and end this game as early as possible, because I know if we get to the late game, we won't stand much of a chance. So here we are for the finals, game number 2. We do get to play first, which is a slight advantage of losing, I guess. And our opening hand is mono-red, apart from the Vivian Reed that's standing awkwardly in the corner. However, we do have a Crash Through to cycle, we've got a Boggart Brute that we can cast, and we've got a Spitflame as removal. So it's a pretty easy keep in my books. I do want to cycle this Crash Through as fast as possible. We draw another big dragon. Marauder's Axe from the opponent, not the scariest. We get to play our Boggart, and a simple pass back is bad news on their part, since obviously they're missing their 3rd land drop. I can't actually play anything to follow up, but I do have this Spitflame open. They play a Dryad Greenseeker, and I decide that that is important enough to remove, since it's going to start getting them cards, getting them lands, essentially. I do draw the 2nd green source, which is a pretty nice top deck here, since we can play down our Vine Mare. Basically everything's heading our way after this. The opponent does find the 3rd land, but just decided to scoop. There'd definitely been a difficult situation to come back from, given that we had another Vine Mare coming down next turn. Game 3, round 3, winner takes all of the finals, and our opening hand is decent. We've got a 3-drop in the Catalyst Elemental, at least we can cast, and might ramp us into this Spark-Tongue Dragon, and we've got our Eternal Cycler, Crash Through here. So let's play it out. Drawing a Boggart Brute is nice, since it essentially won us the last game. Dryad Greenseeker from the opponent, we don't have any interaction. Divination will draw them 2 cards. We play our Boggart Brute, they try and Greenseeker, but they don't find anything. And here they play a Gargoyle Sentinel. So this turn I probably want to cast down our Vine Mare. Because of that, it's a 5-3. I decide to attack with my Boggart Brute, trade with their 3-3 Sentinel, since now we can play the Vine Mare and they don't have a good block for it. Opponent does have a pretty nice answer for the Vine Mare. It's pretty hard to kill the Vine Mare, but they find a way to do it in Declare Dominance, making their 1-3 into a 4-6, which is perfectly sized to obviously take out our Vine Mare. We have to block it. So kudos to the opponent for sideboarding that in, or just having it in their deck, I guess. I draw Vivian Reed, and I decide to actually, since the opponent only has a 1-powered creature in play Vivian and start plussing her up. My theory is that I can start hitting land drops. I've got lots of powerful spells in hand, and I really just, if Vivian sticks around, she wins the game. It'll force my opponent to deal with her, and since they don't threaten her much at the moment, I felt it was pretty safe to put her onto an empty board. Opponent compliments me for my deck as well. I said their deck was sweet. They play a 6-6 Trampler, which is pretty big. So at this point, I want to cast as many creatures as I can to protect Vivian. I did plus her to find a land. Opponent attacks with everything, and now this is where the choices start becoming interesting. So Fossil Dreadmore, and they're both attacking Vivian. They have a 6/6 Trampler and a 1/3. I could put both the Havoc Devils and the Thorn Lieutenant in front of the Dreadmore, which is basically a combined total of 6/6. So it would perfectly take out the Dreadmore and both of my creatures. However, if the opponent has any interaction, bounce spell, a pump spell, a minus effect, any of those, and all of those exist in these colours, I get pretty blown out. So instead I decide to take the safer route to Havoc Devils, eat their Green Seeker, and just chump with this Thorn Lieutenant. I'm not going to have mana for a long time. I've got many powerful spells in hand. I just want Vivian to survive. So there's an interesting conservative line, but I felt it was better than risking everything. 7 mana brings down our old friend the Gaspark Twins, another 7/7 with Trample, so big stuff on the opponent's side. I use Vivian to plus and find a land. And this is kind of the moment of truth. There's not much point in playing down the Spark Tongue Dragons or Catalyst Elementals. I need to play the big bomby Dragon Queen and hope that she survives. I'm pretty dead to Rabid Bite, which I saw in the first game, but there's no way I can play around that card, so I'm going to pretend that it doesn't exist, and I'm not going to bother with it. And attacks before damage is pretty nice, because that means that the opponent didn't find a Rabid Bite or a removal spell, and it means my Dragon Queen might stick around. We missed that combat step. The Gaspark Twins attacked Vivian, and the Dreadmore attacked me. I could have blocked the Havoc Devils on any of them, but either way Vivian was dying and I was taking a lot of damage, so no blocks were sensible there. Cross our fingers that the Dragon Queen survives. Scholar of Stars from the opponent, but with no artifacts it draws them 0 cards, and an Elvish Rejuvenator. So now we get to untap. We draw a Spitflame, but we just want to cast dragons. Lathless is going to give us a 5/5 dragon for every dragon we cast. Spark Tongue Dragon is going to take out their 3/2, and we're left with a pretty big flying army here. We are on 14, and the opponent is incentivized to attack with everything. So I block everything except Lathless on the Gaspark Twins. Drop to 8, but we've still got our Dragon Queen in play. We've got another dragon in hand. Opponent has another very sweet card in this Mystic Archaeologist, so they really went deep on the mana ramp, card draw kind of aspect. The second Spark Tongue Dragon, though, here is going to be pretty brutal. Unfortunately, we can't find a way to also cast Spitflame. The dragon comes out, makes more dragons, and I feel pretty safe to attack with Lathless here, since next turn I'm pretty much secured to win the game, and I do have 13 power and toughness on blocks. Not much that we can lose to here. +7/+7 and Trample would give them 8/14 power of Trample, and we still can block that. So they need a good combination of 2 cards to basically win on this board. Opponent asks how many dragons we have in our deck. Of course, we just say, it's all dragons. Dragons all the way down. They send in with the Dreadmore, block with all the dragons to not lose to a random pump spell. Herald of Faith comes down, but I think this is going to be dragon game over, as Spitflame takes out their Herald. We have bunches of dragons, tons of mana, a Dragon Queen to pump everything, and that will do it. So we finish up 3-0, taking out the finals in good style. There were some fun games and definitely some close decisions. It wasn't a rollover. For sure, could have gone either way. Hope to hear your comments and opinions regarding it. Hope you really enjoyed watching it. It was a super sweet deck to play, very fun. Of course, opening Mythic Planeswalkers and Legendary Dragons is always good, and not every draft can be like that. But hopefully you saw M19, what kind of archetypes you should be looking for, what kind of cards are good to get value, how to stay open and when to kind of commit to a colour, because that is also important, and the importance of, thinking through your plays, taking your time, and essentially riding that skill to victory. So I wish you all the best of luck in your M19 draft. This has been fun. My name is Damon. This is an Arcane Cards draft, and I'll see you all for the next one.